Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today, we don't have a good signal. Hang on there a minute, guys, we're having a little difficulty. Okay, looks like having a little difficulty broadcasting right now. Hopefully this will clear up here momentarily. Stay with me here for a minute as I wait for this to clear up. Getting a lot of drop frames, and I'm not sure how much of this is going out. All right, it looks like it's coming back up. Okay, we're going to try the intro again. Welcome in, everybody. My name is Kerry Holzman. Today is Tuesday, December the 17th, 2019, just 8 days away from Christmas. So hopefully the broadcast is going out okay now. I'm watching the status of OBS, and it's a little up and down, so I'm not quite sure if that's ISP related or YouTube related, but we'll keep an eye on it. And guys, let me know if everything looks good on your side. And today I want to finish up with Mike Smith's system that's behind me. I was trying to get it done yesterday. I can't seem, people just keep emailing me and calling me and texting me and messaging me. And the minute I sit down to do something, I go to address, a message. And I completely forgot why I sat down at the computer. So I thought if I don't do it on camera, it won't get done. And on camera, everything gets silenced and ignored. So at least that way, I can get some focus. With that, still fighting a little bit of a cold, so if my voice sounds a little off, that's why. A quick tip I want to get out of the way is why you won't see me recommending AMD systems for my business users. One of the things I'm trying to do here on the channel is explain to people at home the difference between the needs of a home user and the needs of a business. Because if you want to go into tech as a career, you'll find if you're not properly prepared, if the way you have prepared yourself is through watching YouTube videos and overclocking and RGB lighting and delitting and all this other hobbyist enthusiast activity, you might as well just come off the street with no experience at all. You are absolutely not prepared for the business world. So I'm going to explain this a little bit more in depth, so I hope you can see the logic in it. In order to run a business successfully, you have to generate a profit. In order to generate a profit, you have to figure out a balance between how much labor you're going to put in and how much your customer is willing to pay. And if you want a more successful business, then you want to have the pay up and the labor down, and the customer happy and you're happy. So how do you achieve this balance? How do you acquire a level of sustainability if you're self-employed? And what I have found for me in my business is in order to sustain both customer happiness and my bottom line after expenses, is I have to try and do everything right the first time to the best of my ability. I need to just double check, triple check everything. And in a business that has multiple computers, we want to keep all the computers as identical as possible in order to ease the amount of time required in support. So if you've got so AMD was really down in the well below Intel for a long time. And so it didn't make sense to recommend AMD. And so businesses went with Intel throughout this 10 or 13-year period, whatever it was, where AMD had really fallen behind after the launch of the Core 2 Duo processor. Now, you don't want to have a customer that has a mix of Intel and AMD systems, because that means you're going to spend more time in support. Anytime there's a driver update for AMD, you're going to have to apply it separately. It's not like the timing of the drivers comes out. If there's an exploit that requires a BIOS update or patch, then you will come out there separately for the AMD systems and the Intel systems. When one of the employees calls you for desktop support, how are you going to know if that employee has an Intel or AMD system? So your cost of support goes up, and the customer isn't going to pay you anymore. All you're doing is working harder. And since AMD isn't cutting me a check to make up for that difference, we want to keep everything the same. The only way I would recommend AMD for a business that already has, if they already had AMD, right, that's fine. If they already have Intel, we're keeping them with whatever they have for that reason. If a company had Intel and they wanted to go to AMD, we would do one of two things. One, every system would be replaced with AMD. So again, for support reasons. Or we would have one guinea pig system that we would monitor and have for and evaluate for a period of time to determine if it was viable. And if it was in fact viable, every single machine would have to be replaced. Otherwise, it's not really helping the person who has to support it, which is me. Nor is it helping the customer who may have more issues. Now you've got the issues with Intel plus the Intels with AMD, and you're dealing with twice the number of issues. And with issues, I'm referring to driver updates, I'm referring to exploits, whether we're talking about Meltdown or AMD's got exploits as well. And these require various levels of support to address. So it's not just a matter of being a fanboy and saying, well, Kerry's an Intel fanboy because he doesn't sell AMD to his business clients. You're not really seeing the whole picture. You're a home user who's never had a business. That's the only way you could possibly think that way. Or you've never had a successful business. It's about making your customer happy and giving them value. And you're not giving your customer any value by giving them half of one system and half of another system in their office. So it's really about being optimizing and being efficient with regards to the amount of time I have to invest for any given client. And for home users, they typically only have one computer, so it really doesn't matter. And they don't call you as often. It's very difficult to sustain a self-employed business dealing strictly with residential clients. So that's the reasoning behind it. I hope it makes sense to you now. And if it doesn't, well, start your own computer business, and then you can email me and let me know you finally get it. It has nothing to do with one product being superior over the other. It's about the cost of support, the efficiency of support, and the inconvenience to the customer. If there's an issue with Intel or AMD, they're going to get twice the number of visits, twice the number of downtime, potentially, or it's going to cost me, the provider of support, twice the amount of labor to address both systems as issues come up, whether it's compatibility issues, whatever it is. So anyway, that's all that is. It's really not rocket science. It's really super simple, guys. And if AMD hadn't dropped the ball for so long, there might have been more offices that had AMD. But right now, every office I've got has Intel. And so we're going to keep them with whatever they have. It's really that simple. So hope that clears that up for you. But it is a little frustrating to me sometimes that I'm not communicating thoroughly enough about the difference between home users and business people. So while you can go to those big tech YouTube channels where they can show you all the fun stuff about it, they don't hold any accountability or liability with regards to supporting that stuff for months or years after they made that video. You never see that product again. I do. And so it's very important because even if I have to support it where it's costing me money, the customer is still inconvenienced, and that may be enough for them to blame me for it and find somebody else to replace me. So you get, damned if you do and damned if you don't. So anyway, yeah. Peter Vigian just contributed £5. Hey, thank you, Peter. And it still looks like we've got some video feed issues here. I'm watching OBS. It keeps up and down, up and down, up and down. And I'm not quite sure if that is my ISP or YouTube, but nothing on the system has changed. So OBS is now showing we're back in the green. I'm sort of pausing, waiting for this to level off. Now it's back in red again. Huh. Very strange what OBS is doing right now. It's very difficult for me to determine where the fault might lie. I can only assume it's with the ISP, or it could be YouTube's ingest server. It is all over the map, folks. Let me stop or change the ingest server to the backup server. All right, we're going to try this one more time. We're going to see if we have any better luck here. It looks like, it's too early to tell. Maybe this is going to fix the issue for us. It may be the YouTube server. I've switched YouTube servers. And we'll see if things level off here. It's looking pretty good right now. So far, so good. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining me. And hopefully we've got the lag issue resolved. It does appear that it was a YouTube server issue. Okay. No, it just fell again. Well, just temporary. If the lagging issue won't be resolved, I will have to cancel today's stream because there's no point in doing it if you can't watch it. Yeah, it's all over the place. Thomas O'Keefe has contributed $2. Says, I'm with you live. My logging in donation. Right on. Thank you. Yeah, we're all over the place today. I can see OBS is the amount of data that it's putting out is anywhere from 100 kilobits a second to 11,000. It should never go to 11,000. I don't know why it's doing that. Should be sitting right around 3,000 to 4,000 on average kilobits per second. It's just dropped to 1,800. I can see there's a big issue here. Obviously, it's not going to be good on your end if it's not sending out on my end. It says 461 kilobits a second. That's not enough. Nowhere near enough. Bear Paws contributed £4. Hey, thank you for that. Apparently the audio is going through okay. It's just a video issue. So that's good to know. Thanks for letting me know that. I can see it buffering on my side as well. Not quite sure there's much I can do about this. We've got over 2,400 drop frames since I restarted the stream. Usually that is in a double digits, not quadruple digits. Something's seriously wrong with almost, 37% of my frames being lost. A contribution just came in for 1,000 Hungarian forint. 1,000 Hungarian forint is about $3.38 US. Thank you for the contribution. Thanks for everybody who's supporting the channel. Yeah, I can see the video is just not good. It's interesting because it goes well for a couple minutes and then it just falls off, and then it goes well and then it falls off again. This is not good. What I have to do today is finish up Mike Smith's computer, which basically is just some cable management, and I'm going to put this Intel 660p 2 terabyte NVMe drive down here on the bottom M.2 slot. And then I want to verify, I think we need to put 4 SATA cables in, one for the DVD and then 3 extras for additional hard drives and solid state drives Mike wants to put in. And then a power cable to power his GTX 1060 that he'll install when the machine arrives, he can just plug it in. So we want all that prepared for him. Front and rear case fans are installed and wire tied. I've got some other wire tying done, or cable management done here. It's not done, but it started. And I'm very curious as to how, if the Samsung NVMe driver is used only on the Samsung NVMe, is the system going to load the Microsoft NVMe for the Intel, or does it share? I don't know. I've never mixed those two before. I'm kind of curious what it's going to do. In fact, I want to find out right now. So let's get this Intel 660p NVMe drive out of its box. Just take a moment to install. I'm so glad Mike agreed to let me install this because he'll use it. And I think the more he uses it, the sooner the mechanical drives are going to come out. I really hate the idea of him putting mechanical drives in the system because I know they're going to slow him down, and I know they're eventually going to fail. That'll be the failure point of this system. The first failure point, I think, will be one of his mechanical drives. Not only because it's a mechanical drive, but because it's used. It's already got many hours on it. And he probably needs it for the capacity. But I think between the internal drive, which is 1 terabyte, and this other internal drive, which is 2 terabytes, I don't know the size of the drives he's putting in, but that's an awful lot of space for audio and video files. And I don't think he'll get rid of the hard drives right away, but I think after he starts using them and having to wait for files to transfer, he's going to get, knowing Mike, he's going to get sick of it real quick. And he's going to ask me a question on how we can get more solid-state drive storage for him. You watch. I'm predicting that's going to happen. I'd say within the year of him seeing the system, or using the system, I mean, he's going to be like, all right, can't stand hard drives anymore. They're too slow. And the minute one dies, I think that's all it's going to take. And he's going to be, check, please. Now, as I recall, Gigabyte includes the standoff and screw in the motherboard box, and that's the other reason I wanted to put something in there, is I got a feeling finding this stuff later on is going to be difficult. I could be wrong. He could be a very organized guy, but he doesn't know what to look for, so even if he has it, he'll say, what am I, what's in here? Which one is it? So there's the standoff. And there's the screw right there. Such a waste of resources to separate these out like this. Could have been pre-installed on the board. that down just a little bit more. Just don't want it to back out. That screwdriver's not going to do it. Straight edge will be what I need here. It's weird how my screwdrivers go missing. I don't understand what's happening. Everything's Phillips. Strange. Yeah, I got a little straight edge. Maybe this will do it. Yeah, that's good. Didn't even see it turn at all, did you? That's all it takes, just to get it a little tighter. And the reason is I don't want the standoff to unscrew when, or if we ever have to take the little screw out that holds this Intel 2 terabyte NVMe drive in place. So we'll just go ahead and pop that bad boy in there. There we go. We'll remove the protective cover from the thermal tape on the heat sink. If your motherboard comes with a heat sink for your M.2 drives, it's great. It makes the system look a lot better. M.2 drives don't require heat sinks. They're fully optional. Why is this not tightening down? Oh, would you look at that? Turns out we don't need that standoff after all. It appears that that standoff, the secondary standoff, is only used if you're installing a smaller M.2 drive. That's interesting to know. And if that's the case, then I fully agree that it should not be pre-installed on the board. It turns out the standoff that holds the heatsink in place will also be the same one that secures your M.2 on this make and model of motherboard. It doesn't work that way on all boards, so that's an important detail to know. It's working a little harder than I needed to, so installing this was super easy. That would have just made helping Mike remotely do it more difficult, because he'd say, well, this isn't working, and I'd say, well, it should be working. So when the heatsink gets secured down, it secures down the M.2 drive with it, which makes sense. It's better design. I like that. Yeah, that looks good. There it is. And then we'll take the extra standoff and screw, and we'll put those in a little bag. In fact, I think what I might do is just use one of the bags we've already got in here that has a zip tie, or a Ziploc rather, on it. Yeah. We'll just share it. This Ziploc bag has a couple extra standoffs for the case that we're not going to use. So those are so big, I can pretty much share those in any other bag. And these are tiny, so we will keep them together. There we go. Should never use those anyway, because the smaller M.2 drives are harder to find, they don't perform as fast, and they're more expensive. They're typically for use in really tiny devices, tablets and really thin, small portable devices. Not so much desktop computers. But desktops can support them, right? Because going smaller is always easier than going larger when you have a full-size motherboard here. Whether or not it makes financial sense is entirely a different subject. So all the parts list for everything that we built here is in the video description below the video. And let's get a keyboard, mouse, and monitor plugged into this and initialize that drive. So we'll plug my wireless keyboard and mouse dongle in right there. I need a power cable, so we'll grab this one right here. And then of course I have to hook you guys up so you can see it. Well, so I can see it. So we can both see it. Make sure the power supply switch is in the off position. And then I have to grab an HDMI cable, which I have here. Yeah, it'll be nice when I have a studio and everything's just already wired up, and I don't have to keep tearing things down and setting and configuring things back up again. One of these days. One of these days. All right, let's see. Video output. We're just running off the onboard video for now. As I mentioned, Mike Smith has his own GTX 1060, I think is what he's going to put in there, which is more than adequate for what he's doing. And we'll get this into the back of the capture card. There we go. Okay. Let's fire it up. Fans are spinning. Let's get over to that input. Let's see what it does. It's going to say no signal as it powers up. Be patient for a minute. We've already got Windows installed and activated on here. Should boot up relatively quickly. There we go. Whenever you install a brand new drive, whether it's a hard drive or a solid state drive, you have to initialize it. And if we just go down here into the, I gotta use the right keyboard and mouse. To initialize a new drive, whether it's, like I say, solid state or mechanical, you just type disk management. The other thing you can do, I think, I don't normally do it this way, but I've had a number of people reach out to me and say you could right-click on the start button there. Let me try that and see if disk management is an option. Use the right mouse button one time. Yeah, disk management's right there. It's another way. You know, it's computers, all different ways to do the same thing. Now, it automatically pops up and recognizes we have something new here. We always want to use GPT on Windows 10. Click OK. Now that initializes it. Now we have to create a partition. So we'll say a new symbol volume. And then you can just click next through all this stuff here. Do a quick format. And we're going to get rid of the volume label altogether. And then hit next. It's a relatively simple process. That formats the drive. And it'll just take a moment. It's done. And then this is the contents, it's empty. Now what I'm interested in is when we bring up the Samsung Manager, Magician software. It says I'm using the Samsung NVMe driver on that drive. And if we look at the Intel, look at that. So it uses both the NVMe driver from Microsoft for the Intel drive and the Samsung driver for the Samsung drive. That's pretty cool. I was kind of curious how that was going to work. Didn't know you could have two different drivers for NVMe at the same time, but there's two different devices. So that makes sense. I totally get it. And then there's the C drive and the D drive. Mike's also going to be adding a DVD drive. So when Mike gets this, he's going to have C and D. Then he'll have like a hard drive and two solid state drives, which is E, F, and G. And he'll have a DVD, which is H. So he's going to have this thing filled up. He's going to work his way halfway through the alphabet on that. System is dead quiet, absolutely silent. We'll go ahead and shut that down. And then I'm going to switch you back over to the main camera. There we go. Let's see. Put that back over here. I'm going to unplug this while I continue working on it. Basically, it's all cabling at this point. It's running the SATA cables, running the power, and then wire tying it, making it look all pretty, and then powering it back up again to make sure that during the cable management I haven't knocked anything loose, which is pretty common. Happens quite a bit. Not every time, but you know, the time you don't check it, that'll be the time that it happens. So for that, we're going to need, what did I say? We're going to need like 4 SATA cables, which I think this motherboard comes with. There's 2 there. There's 2 in there. Yeah, this is antenna for Wi-Fi. These are thermal sensors. He doesn't need those. Good. And then, power cables we need are in there. Not all motherboards come with the same number of SATA cables, so it's something you want to check if you're building a new system or replacing your motherboard. I guess if you're replacing the motherboard, you can keep the SATA cables you've got now. But if you're building a new system and you're going to add more than 2 drives, generally motherboards come with 2 SATA cables. Some come with more than 2, the more money you spend. I feel better than I sound, if that's of any. Ron Shadwell wants to know if putting an SSD SATA drive in an old Athlon XP system will work okay and help with the speed. So there's 3 different levels of SATA: SATA 1, SATA 2, SATA 3. And if your system's really old and it has SATA, it's probably SATA 1. It's going to help a little bit with SATA 1, but not much. It probably wouldn't make any sense to put money into an old Athlon XP computer. On the other hand, if you do want to put it in there, it'll work. It's just going to be like a car that won't go into second gear. You're going to be stuck in first gear, which may be a little faster than a hard drive. But then when you do upgrade it, you can carry that drive over to your new system, and then you can open up the taps on it and get the full performance out of it. Carrie, do you think more businesses would go AMD more if they had iGPU on 6 to 8 core chips. Every business is different in what their needs are. The reason, and I don't know how well that earlier explanation went through on why I don't recommend AMD for my business clients, is that I don't want to support 2 different platforms and have them call theoretically as much as twice as often for driver updates for certain tasks, such as Windows Update may require a new driver for certain things like the Intel RST driver, which wouldn't be on an AMD system, but AMD may have their own drivers and they have to be, otherwise the Windows Update won't install. Or there may be a CPU exploit like Meltdown or Spectre, and then there's a different issue with Intel than there is AMD, and so the support becomes much more required, a lot more effort, and it costs somebody more money. And the client, whatever they think they're saving on the AMD, if they have to make up for it on the support side of it, and then the support is more difficult and more time consuming because now we have to support 2 entirely different platforms. So we need to figure out when a client calls for support, which one do they have? Do they have the Intel system at the office or do they have the AMD system at the office? So if they're all AMD or they're all Intel, that's going to reduce the number of support calls and it's going to reduce the confusion and the time involved in resolving the support call. That's all it's about. So since AMD dropped the ball for such a long time, everybody went Intel. All of my clients did. And to shift them off of Intel to AMD would require all of the systems in the office being replaced, or they're going to spend theoretically twice as much in support. They'll have twice as much in lost productivity because they'll have 2 different platforms that each require individual support. And then the person that has to do the support then has to determine each call which system is which to know and determine if it's an issue with that particular chipset or CPU that needs to be resolved, or even maintenance with regards to BIOS updates and patches for security reasons. We go universally across the board with one platform, and it's less downtime, less confusion, and overall cheaper for the business to operate. So that's all it is. It's not really about who's better. It's just about keeping everything the same. So it's not like we're just going to go buy 3 AMD systems and 12 Intel systems. Who's supporting that? And who's going to pay for it? That's all it's about. That's all it is. Pogan TX has contributed $5. He says, Merry Christmas, you need some fruitcake to help with your congestion. Why, is that going to make me vomit? Is that vomiting is good for congestion? I haven't heard that before. Does anybody eat fruitcake? I think somebody gives that to you as a gift and then you give it to somebody else as a gift. I think the same fruitcake from 10 years ago is still being regifted today. That's my theory. Can you explain what a partition is? Yes. Have you ever gone into the restroom and went to use the toilet, and there's these walls around the toilet that block you off from everything else so people aren't watching you sit on the toilet? What are those called? Partitions. They apply more or less for the same reasons as they do in other areas of your life where you have partitions. It's really not that complicated. I find a lot of people don't recognize the words, some of the words, there's not many, but some of the words we use in computers do pertain to the same words we use in real life, and partition is one of those. So you can always, if you want a more technical explanation, you could certainly Google what is a partition, and I'm sure there are YouTube videos and Wikipedia articles that'll get into the technical aspect of it, but I'm afraid if you're somebody who's asking what a partition is, the technical explanation may be just like somebody talking Greek to you. It's not as though we can jump from being down here to being up here in one single step. There's a bit of learning that has to go to get a full comprehension and understanding of the technology. So the simplest explanation is the one you already know. And that at least gets you in the ballpark, the gist of it. But I'm glad you asked the question, and I hope others will ask questions as well. El Has Tepesh has contributed a link there to disk partitioning and a wiki link that I haven't looked at it, but I'm assuming that's probably a good explanation as well. John Wilson just contributed $20. He says, here's for Cokes and cookies for the dogs. Thank you, John. Skyflyer14 has contributed $7. He says, thanks for the great videos, Carrie. They've been most helpful. Thank you. Thanks for supporting the channel. Still getting a lot of drop frames on this stream. This is not a good streaming day today. Not only because I don't have much, my voice is bad and I'm coughing, but also the internet connection is not ideal. Sometimes I think I should just take a hint and take the day off, but you guys aren't complaining too much. If you have any technical questions for me, this will be the time to ask. A lot of times we'll use these questions as quick tips videos later on. Sometimes they're questions that are relatively common, but nobody asks. In other words, a lot of people wonder, but they don't have the guts to ask for numerous reasons. So you might find the question you ask gets used in a quick tip video. Carrie, did your business model change considerably over time as you learned your business? Yes, yeah, it changed quite a bit. Initially, I started by dealing strictly with residential clients, and I was charging $50 for each computer repair, thinking that it was way underpriced, but I would make it up in quantity because people would tell their friends. Well, they didn't. Every once in a while they told their friends, but they really didn't. And that really hurt me. And the way that it hurt me was at my peak of doing that, I had 450 residential clients, and I was barely making my bills in 1 year. That's a lot of work. That's working harder, not working smarter. And so I had to raise the rate. And I had a couple of people be very resistant to that. A couple of customers said, oh, you're charging, I don't know, $80. You used to charge $50. That's a big rate increase. I go, well, I was way under market, to start the business, and I think 80 is still under market. I think it's still a good deal. He goes, yeah, but I supported you. I gave you my business when you were just starting out, and this is how you reward my business. And it kind of offended me. I said, you didn't do me a favor by letting me work for you at a price under market. Now, if you were somebody who referred me to a lot of people, that's a different story. But if all you did was allow me the opportunity to work on your machine, well, you paid a bargain price for it, and then you're telling me you did me the favor, it was entirely reciprocal. I did something for you and you did something for me, and that transaction in and of itself stands isolated on its own without any connectivity to anything past, present, or future. That is its own thing, one and done. But some clients get it in their head that you owe them something because they allowed you to work for them. And of course, they're not the ones, they don't mention the fact that they only had to bring it to me once. They didn't have to bring it back because it wasn't done right. They don't talk about what other people charge and why they selected me at that time. You think they just made one phone call? Of course not. They called around, and I was the best price. Technically, I did them the favor. So for those clients, what I've learned is they're not worth justifying your value to. If somebody doesn't see your value, wish them a good day and move on. It's not worth fighting or arguing or debating or justifying what you do and what your prices are. Now, if you just briefly want to go over it and just remind them, you got it fixed the first time right, you never had to bring it back, it was done quickly, and it was done for less than anybody else would. And if you can find somebody who can do all that and do it faster or cheaper or better, use them. Be foolish not to. And then we'll both be happier. You'll be happier and I'll be happier. I wouldn't say it that way though. I would just say, look, I'm sorry you don't see the value in what I offer. I hope you can find somebody else who does. If not, I'm still here and I'll be happy to help you. And that's pretty much the way I've learned to handle it. But I didn't have any training for business, running a business. All of my training is in computers, it's in mechanics. So there was no business model really to follow. There was no Geek Squad. So because computers were so new, not as many people had them. Everybody had dial-up at that time. There was no broadband. You were still dealing with modems and WinSock and stuff like that. So yeah, the business has changed a lot, and I've learned a lot. And I hope to share as much of that as possible. And a lot of it I don't think to share until people ask questions like you just did. So thank you for asking. Yeah, not everybody's going to value you, and that's okay. It's fine. In the 80s, Lee Iacocca was the chairman of, or the president of Chrysler, and he used to do these commercials on TV where he said, if you can find a better car, buy it. So that's a great line. He's basically saying, I'm not going to sit here and talk to you about the value of my car. I know the value of the cars I sell. And if you don't see that, buy the one you do see the value in. We'll both be happier at the end of the day. Where I would tack on to the end of that is I would let the client know I'm still here. In other words, it's just not a one and done kind of, it doesn't have to be an absolute. If you want to go out there and look and you end up not finding anybody that offers the value I do, you're welcome to come back. Because when they come back, they'll have value, right? They'll now see the value in you. That's the only reason they would come back. So I wouldn't say if you leave, you can never come back. I wouldn't say that. I would just say, go out there and find someone else. And if you do, you'll be happier and I'll be happier because I don't have to listen to it. And if you don't, you'll be happier because you'll see my value and I'll be happier because you see my value. And we hopefully won't have to go through this again. I have had clients where I've had to go through this 2 or 3 times. And by the 3rd time, I tell them I'm not, that's it, we're done. I'm just finished. Especially with a business client where I have a lot of investment in the setup of the office and configuration and maintenance. It's a lot of work. And that's on a maintenance contract where I lose a lot of money up front because of the time and effort involved to configure everything. And I only make money over time. But over time, because I've configured it and I'm watching it mostly remotely and adjusting, making fine little refinements, boss doesn't see me. Boss says computers don't have any problems. I don't see why we're paying you anything. So, first time that happens, they go somewhere else, they find somebody else, they spend 4 times the amount of money, they have all this downtime. Hey, can you come back and set us up again? I do it again, and then time passes and they're like, I don't understand why we're paying you, and we're right back to where we were. And then it's like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. I've got other people who appreciate what I do and they value what I do. If I have to work that hard to convince you, there better be a lot of money in it. Otherwise, I got other things to do. Tom wants to know, what do you think of a value of dollar per minute of your time for labor? Say 10 minutes equals $10 and bill the client $10 for the time and effort. I don't know any business that operates by the minute. Most attorneys will charge you by the quarter hour, every 15 minutes. So if you use 1 minute or 15 minutes, you charged a minimum of a quarter hour. I don't even like to do that either. I think that there's a cost of advertising and a cost of marketing. And if something is 15 minutes or 10 minutes, I just give it to the customer. Just give it to them. So you know what? That's in the spirit of customer service, and it's giving you a reason to not go somewhere else and look for somebody else because I took care of you. Once again, that doesn't always work, and you can set a bad precedent there where they start to expect it to always be free of charge. So what I will do, if a customer calls 2 or 3 times, 15 minutes at a time, more often than not, the customer will be uncomfortable by me saying, don't worry about it. And they'll say, well, let me pay you something. I go, fine, I'll tell you what, we've done this 3 times now, about 15 minutes a time. So I'll charge you for an hour, and then you'll get 1 more 15-minute call in the future. How's that sound? So usually they have to twist my arm because they feel bad about calling me. Or They say, I was going to call you, but I feel so bad you don't charge me. I didn't want to call you. So there are some really good clients out there that think about you. You've got to find that balance individually in your community and in your morals and your ethics, where you find that balance between what you charge for and what you don't. The important thing is if you're giving away something that the customer has to know it's free. You still have to mail an invoice to them and say, on this day I did a support call regarding this issue over the phone. The minimum billing time is 15 minutes, no charge for this call, and then zero out the amount as a consider it like a coupon, so the customer has a reminder that you just gave them something of value and didn't charge them for it. It's very important. If you don't do that, particularly for business clients, they forget. They don't know how many times it's happened. If you tell them it's been 3 times, they're like, no, it's only been 2. You've got to have that documentation. And that kind of makes you not want to give it away for free anymore. You're like, well, at least me, I don't mind helping you on the phone, but now if I got to open up my billing software and write all this out and document it, and I want to get paid for that. That's the irony of it. But that's, and I want to reiterate, that's the way I run my business in my community. You have to adjust your business to your community, to your culture, to your standards, to your morals, and to your ethics. I'm not suggesting charging by the minute is wrong. I just don't have any precedent for that in my community. I don't know of any business that does that. So I'm basing what I do off what lawyers do with regards to how they charge. Lawyers may charge differently, or you may have other businesses that charge differently in your community. And so you should do what is considered normal, and at the same time consider incentive for customers to utilize your service. If you're just doing what everybody else is doing, why should they pick you over somebody else? There's got to be an incentive in there somewhere, and that's for you to figure out as the business owner. Diner Christie says, I work as a locksmith, and more times than not, most jobs are completed in less than a half an hour, which is our minimum labor charge. I created flat rates for various routine services to make pricing easier. I did the same thing. I have some flat rate, just like the computer repairs you see me do here are all done on flat rates. All the computer builds are done on flat rates. So if it takes me longer, customer doesn't have to pay for me to learn or to correct mistakes. Customers shouldn't have to pay for that. John Williams says, hey, Carrie, keep up the good work. Sorry I haven't been around. Down to personal issues. I sent you £5 on PayPal. Thanks, John. I hope you're doing okay. It's good to see you in here. Bill Bauer says, I missed a couple of your live feeds. Glad to be here. Thanks, Bill. We're not having a good live stream day today. Everything's jittery, and the upload bandwidth is a little wonky today. So thanks for hanging in there with this less than superb quality broadcast today. Video quality. And I have to sneeze. Ooh, that's a good one. What's up, Lyle? So when you're in business, you've got to be careful not to give away your business, and that'll put you out of business. You can't be too nice. You still have a business to run. So, don't get me wrong. Charging people is still being nice. there's a concept between what's justifiably something you should charge for, and what is gouging. I'm not a fan of gouging. I don't like it when people take advantage of others. So that's really something for you to determine. A lot of business owners think gouging is the best way to make money. If you've got somebody who doesn't understand what value is, you can create a value that's far out, just outrageous. And if you're a good salesman, convince the customer you're worth it and charge them 10 times more for everything. And they don't know because they didn't shop around. And often what I hear from the business owners that do that is, it's not my responsibility to give them the best deal. Like, if they want to pay me 10 times more than it's worth, if I can sell this piece of $10 antivirus software for $100, why shouldn't I? I'm a businessman, I'm not a charity. And it just makes me sick to hear people like that, just to hear people take advantage. Now, there may be other clients that are very wealthy and say, look, I don't care what this costs, just take care of it. And maybe you can justify charging them more to expedite it and get it done quickly. But I worked with one guy, and he would charge based on what kind of car you drove up in. Like, if you drove up in a Mercedes, you paid more than a guy who, let's say, drove up in a Hyundai. That did not sit well with me. Everybody should always pay the same price, regardless of gender, age, status, income status, religion. There's still a lot of businesses out there, a lot of primarily self-employed people who will change what they charge. For example, a painter might look at a basic everyday house and say, I'll charge you $1,500 to paint the house. They might look at a well-to-do mansion, and granted, it's more work, but their profit margin on it will go up because they know the homeowner has more money, and it's an opportunity for them to gouge. I'm not a fan. Your price should be per hour. If there's more hours involved, it's going to cost more, but it shouldn't be the price per hour goes up or the price for materials goes up. In fact, it should be the other way around. When you buy more, there should be a bulk discount. I mean, that's what shopping at Costco and Sam's Club here in the US is all about. When you buy in bulk, you pay less, not more. So anyway, everybody's business is free to run however they want to run it, and you will both reap the benefits and suffer the consequences of the decisions you make. Yeah, that sounded good. You're grabbing a box, Lyle? Or you're taking that box? You brat? You can have it if you want it. He wants that little piece of cardboard that came with the Intel 660p. I swear he's part cat. You getting it? Taking it? You took it. The look on your face. He's just trying to get my attention. Go get it. Oh, if I point the camera at you, you get camera shy? That's right here. Chomp. Get it. Lyle. Get it. Get it. Yeah, he won't do it now. It's like the dancing frog. When you look at him, he won't dance. Brat. There's Jimmy. Screwball. All right. Anyway. Carrie, do you sell hardware? No, I don't sell any hardware because then I'd have to collect sales tax and work for the government for free. The government doesn't pay me to collect sales tax for them. I'm not a deputy of the IRS, but they expect me to be for free. So clients can buy their own parts. That way all the warranty goes in their own name. I'm just paid to assemble or repair. That's all I do. Tom Jackson contributed $7.77. He goes, here's for a 6-pack of Cold Remedy. Thanks, Tom. Technologic says, I love your Lazy Susan. The link to that Lazy Susan is in the video notes in the Amazon shop. I've got my own little Amazon. And everything you see in the video, like the keyboard, mouse, the Lazy Susans, the screwdrivers, all that's in the Amazon store where you can purchase it. Ronald Hambrick has contributed $2. Thank you, Ronald. David DeVillers has provided a link for Intel's NVMe driver. Yes, there is a separate driver and a separate Intel firmware or Intel toolbox, which is similar to the Samsung Magician. I'm hesitant to install both, although installing both NVMe drivers from Samsung and Intel is fine. I just don't know if I want to install the update tool, or the toolbox rather, the Intel solid state drive toolbox. I suppose I should. And Lyle's back at tearing up the box again. You tearing that up, boy? No. As soon as I talk to him, he stops and goes over to the cookie jar. Bill Bauer contributed $5. He says, here's some cash for you to buy Jimmy and Lyle some treats for Christmas. You're getting a lot of Windows 7 to 10 upgrade requests with the end of service coming. Not too many. I got most of them in the summertime and a couple in the fall, but since winter, technically is it winter yet? It's sort of slowed down. I got a feeling in January, especially when Microsoft starts popping up those ads, those warning messages, I suspect I'll be getting some more calls. Luckily, it's something easy people can take care of themselves. They don't have to hire me for it. Simply download the Windows Media Creation tool and follow the on-screen instructions. You turn that box up, you got it in pieces there. You better not chew on that extension cord. Just the box, not the power cord, okay? He won't eat the power cord. You're like a cat. Get that box. Get it. Oh, you tell him. Screwball. Get it. Get it. Now he's grabbed the other box, and he's gone. You screwball. All right, enough of that. That was your entertainment. Watch my dog shred boxes. And he's back again. Do I have enough flash drives? No. I think I only have about 30 or 40 of them. I feel like I need like another 30 or 40. I use flash drives a lot. Glenn Davies has contributed $5 Australian. He says, put this towards the new boat rudder. A shame to get another cold. We have 102 degree Fahrenheit today and 105 Fahrenheit tomorrow, and our summer has barely started. Yeah, summertime in Australia. Thank you for the contribution, Glenn. I appreciate that. Looking to see if I missed any questions here in the chat. Dustin Fuller has contributed $5. He says, great video as always. Thank you, Dustin. Kiri, are you excited about the final Star Wars movie? You know, I don't like when things end. I don't have all of the Beatles albums because once I have them, there's nothing left to collect. I tend to avoid endings for things I really care about because I know that's that. Sometimes I stumble into endings by mistake. I go, oh, that was a season finale? I didn't realize that. I may have put it off to savor it, make it last a bit longer. It's a little something psychological with me, I guess. So, yes, I'm excited, and I really don't want to see it because that means it's the end and there's nothing left of that story. So, I'm on the fence about it. I really don't know if I will see it during the opening week or not. I really don't know. It's a good, sort of a bittersweet thing, I suppose. GPhil612 has a question about RAID, but I don't know what it is. I don't see any question from him. If you guys have any questions, that's what I'm hesitating for, is I'm waiting for any technical or relevant questions to come through. Relevant questions, folks. Is there a limit to how many monitors you can hook up to a computer? Well, it depends if you just want the same screen. Like if you've ever gone into a department store and they have that wall of TVs, that's just an HDMI splitter, and you can hook up as many as the splitter will support. You can plug a splitter into another splitter, and as long as they're all displaying the same image. If you want all the monitors to display different images, then you can only plug in the number of monitors your graphics card or cards will support. So high-end graphic card will generally support 4 monitors, and you can put, on a high-end motherboard, you could put 4 graphics cards in, and that would give you a total of 16 monitors, and that would pretty much max you out to that ability, but you'd have to be pretty clever and spend a lot of money to be able to do it. Sarah wants to know if it's safe to use a leaf blower to clean your PC. I've demonstrated it here over the last 10 years to prove that it was safe. And should I upgrade my Dell to a solid state drive and upgrade my RAM, or should I get a MacBook? I really can't answer that for you. That's something you'll have to decide on your own. I kind of liken that to asking what car you should buy, you know. Should I buy a minivan? Or should I get a sports car? Should I get a hybrid, or should I get an electric? Should I get a 2-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive, or a pickup truck? You know, should I get a 2-door or a 4-door? Should I get an extended cab truck, or should I get an off-road vehicle? Should I get a Jeep? Should I buy an SUV? See, I don't know you. I don't know your budget. I don't know how you're going to use it. I don't know if gas mileage is more important than power, or if you just want the power and you're not going to use it. If you've got a family or you live alone, how you're going to park it, where you're going to park it. Is it too big for you to be able to handle it? Is it too small? Do you feel claustrophobic in it? Is it too expensive? Is the warranty not good enough? Maybe you're into the environment. You want something that's fully electric, and if it's fully electric, should you go with Tesla, or should you go with Audi, or should you go with other fully electric cars? So it's really not a question. It's like, what haircut should I get? What tattoo should I get? What should I order off the menu? These are decisions you really need to decide for yourself. Kevin wants to know, he's got a RAID 1 volume with partition C and D drives. Do you think I can use a Cronus to clone the C drive to the other? Of course, yeah, that's no big deal. You can use a Cronus to literally clone any hard drive to any other hard drive or solid state drive, M.2 or otherwise, and the other way around. There's no limitation. Steve wants to know, when doing a BIOS update on a new motherboard, which in this case is a B450 chipset, will you have to use a Ryzen 2000 series CPU, or can you use a Ryzen 3000 series CPU? It depends which BIOS you're upgrading from. If the BIOS you're upgrading from supports the Ryzen 3000, then you can use the Ryzen 3000 to upgrade from that point beyond. If it doesn't, you can contact AMD to get a BIOS flash kit, and they will loan you the chip required. If you have say you bought a brand new Ryzen 3000 and a B450 that doesn't have the BIOS to support it, you can contact AMD, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. You got to jump through some hoops, but if you qualify for it, they will loan you the chip, which will enable you to flash the BIOS so you can use your new Ryzen 3000. Many of the boards I'm getting, because it's Christmas time and people are buying, a lot of inventory is going very quickly, so a lot of that old inventory is gone. So most of the inventory out there should be relatively recent for motherboards and should have the more recent BIOS on them. So it just depends on what you've got. That will certainly be a question to ask the motherboard manufacturer. Not all B450s work the same way with regards to the BIOS. MSI does it differently than ASRock, who does it differently than Gigabyte, who does it differently than ASUS. So I would I would just contact the motherboard manufacturer. What is EOS? EOS is end of service, or it could be EOL, end of life. Don't be afraid to use Google. You're not taking that box. That one's not for you. What was your most difficult or tough customer? Just customers that have unrealistic expectations. They want to pay too little. They want it done too quickly. They don't comprehend that I don't have any employees. If I had employees, I'd have to charge them more, and the quality of the work would vary from who's ever doing it. So if you want the quality and consistency of what I order, of what I offer, you have to wait your turn for me to get to you. And if you're being very demanding and you think that I should just drop everything to help you, I don't think you would like it if I did that for somebody else. There's only one of me, and there's only so many hours in the day. But once you have my attention, you have it. You have it totally. And then, of course, when we're done, then somebody else gets my attention totally. That's how I roll. So typically, the customers who won't accept that if they think they're the most important person in the world, sometimes they need a gentle reminder that I'm self-employed and there's only one of me and I have other people. Because otherwise, if I was waiting on them to call me every time, I wouldn't have enough money to pay the rent and I wouldn't be in business. And if they were paying me that much that often, I wouldn't be self-employed. I might as well just go work for them directly. And then if they decide they want to fire me, I'll be out of work. So it's really a delicate balance of not putting all your eggs in one basket, so if one client leaves, you've got other clients to fall back on so you don't fold up shop. You can't let clients tell you how to run your business. At least I don't. If they don't like it, they can go somewhere else. And it sounds cold, but that's why you have multiple clients. Don't rely on one. And if you want to prioritize one, there's nothing wrong with that, but I certainly hope that you're making up for it with the amount of money you collect from that one, and that you're not shooting yourself in the foot by upsetting all the other customers. And like I said, then you just find yourself basically employed by that entity. And then they can tell you what they're going to pay you, or where else you're going to go, or when they're going to pay you. Too bad, wait. There are people like that. I've met them. Is the RGB build complete? Nothing's being done on the RGB build off camera, so its status is as it was the way you last saw it. Do you get requests for small form factor machines? Not very often, once in a while. Most customers don't even know they exist, and most customers don't see a benefit to it. Cody Butt has contributed $5 Canadian. He says, I've been a viewer for 5 years now and just graduated with a bachelor's of engineering in computers, specializing in PC hardware design. You inspired me a lot. Well, congrats. I'm happy for you. That's great. Should be a really good career. Bill Bauer wants to know, did Acronis ever get back to you about the issue with the backup image created with the wrong partition scheme? That was a long time ago, Bill. I honestly don't remember. All that was resolved, and I barely remember it. I've done so much work since then, and it was a unique problem I never had before and I haven't seen since. I know I made them aware of it, and I know that they reported it to their development team. That's the last I remember. Joseph wants to know who are my favorite tech YouTubers. I don't really, there's probably just one, and that would be Gamers Nexus. I don't really watch other tech YouTubers. I'm not really interested because, again, they don't, if you're not being held accountable or responsible for the things you recommend, or if the things that you're doing are silly hobbyist nonsense, to me it's a disconnect from the real world and how business operates and what it means to be a tech. It's okay as a hobby, don't get me wrong. I just hate that it gives people quite often misinformation about what being a technician is all about. And that bothers me as a tech. But I watch a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's other YouTube channels I like. I like Eva in the City, which is completely different. It's my way of visiting Britain and France and Belgium without having going there. I really like her vlogging style. I also like Liza Koshy. I think she's brilliant, but she's sort of moved away from YouTube, it seems. David Dobrik, he's hilarious, freaking hilarious. And then, of course, there's a couple other channels I really enjoy that are not tech related, whether they're, Hoonigan about cars and Gymkhana and that kind of stuff. They just did one where he's in China on a mountain, which is, sketchy, which I really liked. What's the other name of that? Dude Perfect. It's hard to believe they really do that stuff without video editing, and supposedly it's all real, but it's very entertaining to watch. I'm trying to think what other YouTube channels I watch. Most of it's not tech related. There's probably a couple of tech channels I watch I can't think of at the moment, but if I'm going to watch one, my first go-to is Gamers Nexus. Buon Appetiti is the Italian grandmother who does real Italian cooking. I can't get enough of that. I love the authenticity. I love how she can just do everything old school, making items from scratch. I love how she does it in mass quantities. I love how much time she takes and how much passion she has. I'm so sick of the corporate processing of food. To see somebody do it the old-fashioned way. She's not putting any rubber gloves on, folks. This is grandma cooking. I love it. Absolutely love it. Gino says, I have a pre-built PC. Can I update the BIOS? You would have to go to the support area of the PC manufacturer to see if an updated BIOS is available. And on the support area, it will instruct you how to do it if one is available. They don't all follow the same processes and procedures. And there's very little reason to do that on a pre-built PC like there is on a homemade PC. It's sort of a pointless exercise for most people, unless it's for, like it's an older computer and it needs a BIOS update for Windows 10 compatibility. But again, you would go to the support side of the manufacturer. Dells have a service tag on the back of them, and you would enter that service tag in. And depending on who makes it, they will support it the way that they support it. And so they will be the ones you will have to ask your question to, not me. Chuck says, I'm a novice at 70. Where do you get clones, software, or hardware? Well, everything can be purchased at Amazon, but I'll use Acronis software for cloning. There's Macrium, Reflect, and Clonezilla of varying degrees of difficulty. There are hard drive docking stations that allow cloning of the same size drive or larger, which are going to take forever to complete the task because it will copy every sector of the drive regardless if it's in use by data or not. So it's sort of a complex question you're asking. It sort of depends on what job you want to do. I recommend Acronis is the cheapest and easiest, and I have numerous videos that show you how to use it. Carrie, what are your thoughts on the Noctua NHD15 for 9900 KS? I think you could save some money and go with a scythe Mugen 5 for under $50. I'm not a Noctua fan. Not to make a pun. But Noctua, in my opinion, are overpriced for what you get. If you want to overclock it, put a liquid cooler on it. That's my opinion. If you don't want to overclock it, put a Mugen 5 on it and take the $50 I just saved you and send a contribution of half of that to the channel. That's what I recommend. Steve Devine says, Acronis said they are stopping free support for Malwarebytes. Acronis and Malwarebytes are two different companies. One doesn't support the other. I think you need to retype whatever you wrote because I don't think you meant to write that. It doesn't make any sense. It's like saying Chevy said they're going to stop supporting Ford. They're two entirely different manufacturers. One does not support the other one. Never has. It looked like there were some other questions, technical questions. If you guys have any technical questions, this will be the time to ask. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's stream because it is really suffering today. And I'm going to finish up the cabling on Mike's system behind me. There's no point in showing you the cabling on it. I did want to show you the installation of the Intel drive, and I will throw on the Intel Toolbox and Intel NVMe driver the more I'm thinking about it. There's no reason not to. Michael says the camera keeps buffering. No, it's not the camera that's buffering. It's YouTube. Or it's my internet connection. But it's not. It has nothing to do with the camera. Come on, guys. Any technical questions for me? Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up. Somebody wanted to know something about RAID, but I don't know if they left or what's going on. I never saw the question. Chuck Wants says, I want to send you a thank you. I don't know how. You can reach me through the email address listed at tech-vets.com. If you go to the site on the right side, it'll say how to contact Mike Smith and how to contact Kerry Holzman. Click on who you want to contact. It's super easy. This live video is rewindable. So if you're just joining us and you wonder what you missed, just roll back the scroll wheel, the scroll bar, roll it backwards just like you would on any other video, and you can see what you missed. Rich says they used to make motherboards that could have 2 CPUs. Yeah, those are for servers. But now there's multiple cores on one CPU. Those aren't really as needed. That's how you got more cores. Back in the day, you needed more CPUs. Michael Young says, is an Intel 2 processor outdated? Well, there's no such thing as an Intel 2 processor, so I have no idea what you're asking. Can a bad Ethernet cable take down my internet connection? Yes, of course. All right, well, I'm not seeing any more technical questions, and OBS is really not doing well today. The internet connection is not doing well. Looks like it's coming from my ISP. So I guess we'll wrap it up early today. Sort of stalling to see if anybody has a technical question they want to ask and just hasn't typed it in yet. Kareem wants to know what motherboard I would recommend for SLI. I can't recommend any motherboard without knowing you, without knowing what your needs and budget are, without knowing how you're going to use it and what cards you intend to use. It would be impossible and irresponsible for anybody to answer that without that information. Do you recommend any benchmarking programs? No, I think benchmarking software is just a psychological way of deciding if you're going to be happy or not. If your system boots and works to your level of satisfaction, don't let any benchmarking software tell you otherwise. Robert corrects and says Intel Core 2 Duo. Oh, that's long obsolete. That's over 15 years old. Yeah. Kerry, what makes Windows snappy, CPU or SSD? A RAM and solid state drive. So the solid state drive with a minimum of 8 gigs of RAM. With anything, any CPU, you're going to notice a big significant difference with the snappiness of Windows, regardless of your processor, as long as you have 8 gigs of RAM and a solid state drive. Now, I'm not going to say they all run the same. I'm just saying it's a noticeable difference in performance, regardless of the age of the computer. You will notice if you're going from 4 gigs to 8 gigs of RAM and from a mechanical drive to a solid state drive, it's like basically getting a whole new computer. Steve Devine contributed $2. He said, sorry, I meant Acronis ransomware. Well, you couldn't expect them to give that out for free forever. I mean, how do you sustain that business model? So that makes sense to me. Look, you're backing up your data is your responsibility, and how you intend to do that is also your decision. Acronis offered a free tool to help protect against ransomware, and they can't simply continue to develop that tool and update it with changes to Windows that occur. The internet's always evolving constantly, and there's a huge expense to developing that. So I'm not surprised. And you really don't need it anyway. As long as you have backups, it doesn't really matter. Madi just contributed $20. Thank you to Madi Yoel for his contribution to the stream. What could be the reason AMD Adrenalin software doesn't work with my processor? Once again, you would want to contact your motherboard manufacturer that is specific to the make and model of what you have and address that with them. You can usually contact them through their own forums or email. You don't necessarily have to pick up the phone and call. So many questions here are so unique to the hardware you guys have selected that it would be impossible for anybody to answer that doesn't directly have access to the specific information of the parts you have. So motherboard maker, contact them. DHR Street Speed says 80% of your issues come from 20% of your clients. So I heard this whole 80-20 rule, and it's fascinating to me how many different variations there is on this 80-20 rule, which is exactly what DHR Street Speed said, but it also applies the flip way that 20% of your clients will provide 80% of your income. And 20% of your clients will give you the biggest headache. And 80% of this 20-80 thing seems to apply on so many different levels. And it's not precise. But generally, 1 in 5 of your clients is a pain in the butt. 1 in 5 of your clients will make you a lot of money. They'll give you a lot of business. And you flip it the other way, where you say 80-20, so we're going 4/5. 4/5 of your clients will be great, if you flip it the other way. The 80-20 rule seems to have a lot of different definitions that all seem to more or less say the same thing, which is overall, I was interested in, what was the guy's name? Bob Lutz was this chairman of like 3 major car manufacturers. And one of the things that surprised me, he's somebody very successful. He owns a Russian jet fighter plane because he enjoys flying. He used to be in the military as a pilot. He's a very well educated, very accomplished man. And he said that as he moved up in the world, he thought that the people surrounding him would get smarter. And they didn't. He said no matter where he was, if he was in a regular old college, about 20% of the people there were complete morons. And when he got his first job, about 20% of the other employees were complete morons. And as he became on the board of directors, about 20% of the board of directors were complete morons. And when he became a CEO, about 20%, he's like, no matter where I got in life, no matter how high up I went, about 20% of the people were not there for the right reasons. Like maybe they were on the board of directors because they knew somebody or they paid their way in. But it wasn't because of their education or it wasn't because of their experience. It was because of who they know or what they were bringing to the table financially. And I found that completely fascinating. It's similar to Bill Gates when they asked him many years ago when Microsoft was really starting to take off. He was still flying coach on commercial airlines. And they said, how come you fly coach? You make enough money, you should fly first class. And he said, once you make a certain amount of money, things don't get any better. Like once you've reached the pinnacle of the eating at the nicest restaurant, once you go anything above that, the restaurants don't get any better. And with regards to first class or coach, he says, I'm not going to get there any earlier. I'm not a particularly large person who needs a bigger seat. So there's no real benefit for me to sit in first class. It has no real benefit to me. But I never really thought of that. I never thought of once you reach a certain amount of wealth, everything sort of doesn't get any better. So restaurants don't get any better. You sort of reach this pinnacle at a certain amount of wealth, I guess is what he's saying. And then as you go above and beyond that, just nothing gets any better. That's plays with my head because I never thought that far ahead, but it makes sense to me. So we go back to that 80-20, to me, that is also related to that in the sense that there is a point of diminishing returns, I guess. Brendan Looney contributed £2. Thank you, Brendan. Doc Mechanic wants to know the function of the cores. The cores are the engine. So a car with 2 engines or 4 engines or 8 engines, it's very similar. If you look at truck and tractor pull on TV, you'll see numerous tractors with multiple engines, and they can tow heavy loads through the mud on the truck and I love that. It's fascinating. They have more overall power, more torque. So in the case of a CPU, the more cores you have, you can assign tasks to different cores. Unfortunately, programs aren't really written yet to take advantage of multiple cores. And if they do, they only take advantage of a couple. So then you end up basically having all these cores that don't do much. So it's a marketing technique to get you to convince that there's more value to pay more for a 3950X processor versus a 3900, when in reality you may see no performance benefit whatsoever, unless you do very specific tasks that are core intensive, which is mostly content creation, video editing, architectural rendering, really high-end stuff like that, which most users don't use that. 90% of the people who buy that, I would guess, aren't utilizing 20% of it. I think we're back to the 80-20 rule again. See, it just applies everywhere in life. Thomas Robinson's contributed £2. He says, how do I know if my Windows 10 is genuine? You just simply need to go to the activation area. You can go to System in your control panel and look to see if Windows is activated. If Windows is activated, as far as Microsoft is concerned, you're genuine. If it's not genuine, it'll pop up and tell you you may be a victim of software piracy or software counterfeiting. If you don't see that message and your Windows is activated, it sounds like everything's okay. And that goes for Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, Windows Vista, it's all the same. MB wants to know if the cores of a CPU is a car engine, what are threads? So threads are like the best way I can explain it would be like a simulated engine. So you could have 8 engines that work as 16. So by each engine represents a thread, and then through software they can emulate a second thread or a second engine. And if you have a piece of software that can take advantage of 16 cores, then you need only buy an 8-core CPU with hyper-threading in the case of Intel, and it looks like 16 to the software, and it works faster. So there are basically 8 real cores and 8 simulated cores that work in tandem together. But very little software takes advantage of that. It's only really super high-end software, typically in content creation, that sees any benefit from that. Luke says we should start thinking about moving on from Windows 8. Windows 8 support doesn't end until 2023. There's no hurry to get out of Windows 8. If you've got it, it's fine. And Marty contributed $2. Thank you, Marty. Steve Devine says they have Trimage 2020 for $25. I just saw a coupon for Acronis for 5 PCs for $30 at slickdeals.com or .net. Check out slickdeals.com. I think it's slickdeals.com. I'm pretty sure that deal was posted earlier today. Mark Y said, I'll take my sanity over an extra few $100s. Yeah, again, when you're dealing with business and you're dealing with difficult people, a lot of the justification is I need the money. I can't tell this customer where I want them to go because I need their money. And usually what happens is when you reach your breaking point, which ultimately will happen, and you finally go separate ways with that customer, you feel so much better and you realize the money wasn't as valued as your peace of mind or the lack of stress that you've now been relieved. You will have a weight lifted from your shoulders that you won't realize was there until it's been removed, and you feel so much better. And then you will ask yourself, how much would I pay to have had that weight lifted off my shoulders 6 months ago? And why didn't I do it? That's very, very common. Max Payne says Bill Gates' success is due to IBM dropping the ball and they didn't keep the OS. Anybody who's successful, who has any realistic, in my opinion, view, unbiased view of their success, will realize that there is luck that takes place in success. It's not just skill. You have to have the skill, and you've got to have the right timing or the right opportunity. And when those two things meet, boom, you can be very successful. So in my opinion, from everything I've studied from people like Steve Jobs and Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, a lot of very successful people weren't necessarily very nice people. Steve Jobs isn't known for being a super nice guy, nor was Thomas Edison. And sometimes the nice guys, like Nikola Tesla, die broke and alone, only to have their genius recognized later, or Alan Turing, for example. So it is very nice to hear from somebody successful who acknowledges that they're not the end-all, be-all of humankind superiority, but that they recognize that they had the right skill and they made the right decisions and they were ready when opportunity came. And so to put anybody down like Bill Gates, to suggest that Bill Gates' success is because somebody else dropped the ball, could be said to be true of anyone's success. Somebody has to drop the ball in order for somebody else to take a leap ahead of them. That's how success works for everybody. So I don't think that's right to rain on somebody's parade, and I also don't think it's right for somebody to boast about their success without acknowledging time and place. And time and place is nothing you can create. It's you have to be ready, right? Opportunity may have come knocking at your door 10 times in your life and you haven't recognized it yet. It could have just passed you by because you weren't ready. And that's your fault, right? Other people are ready and opportunity never comes knocking, and it's not for lack of their skill or knowledge. They just were never in the right time or place. A lot of people move to be to the right place. A lot of people move to Silicon Valley if they want to be in tech. A lot of people move to Hollywood if they want to be in movies. It's tough to want to be in movies. Be the best actor in the world in Nebraska. Who knows you're there? So sometimes you've got to potentially, uproot yourself to go where the opportunity is, and that doesn't guarantee you're going to get any opportunity, but it means you're more likely to than if you're a ways away from it. So to suggest that somebody just dropped $1 billion on Bill Gates without him looking is not the way it went down. He worked for it, and he was ready. So, to the victors go the spoils, regardless of, that's just bitterness and jealousy to suggest there was no luck or it was all luck. It's a balance of skill and opportunity. So what you do is you get yourself skilled, and then you look for those opportunities. If you just wait for opportunity to come to you, you might be waiting a long time. And when you combine those two things, sparks can fly and your success can go up. And then other people can insult you because they're jealous of your success. And the wheel will go around and the universe is complete. DHR Street Speed says service provider does not mean slave. The word I like to use is indentured servant because it's more accurate. But yes, there are customers who feel like they're buying you and they own you. And you need to give them consent for that to work. So you need to be aware of what's happening, and it's up to you if you don't like it to put a stop to it. Some people will say, well, I need the money. We go back to the whole thing. They justify it because they need the money, and they don't realize what it's truly costing them outside of, not everything of value is something you can pay for. And sometimes you need to sort of get to this on your own before you fully understand what I'm saying. I have shopped through Walmart and Target, and I have yet to find the aisle where happiness is available for sale. I have yet to find the aisle where peace of mind is available for sale. Not everything in this life that gives us quality of life is something you can pay for. Some of that is stuff you have to go out and get on your own without anybody's help. And very rarely will it ever be brought to you. And oftentimes, at least in my case, I can speak, we have to go down that path exactly like that. Justify the money, put up with the nonsense, justify the money justifies the nonsense, and then reach a breaking point and then realize there are things more valuable than money that are priceless. I don't know, in the human condition, there's just some things that for many people have to be experienced. I cannot tell you what hot means. Until you burn yourself, you will truly know the definition of that word. I can't explain to you how to swim. You sort of have to get in the water and figure it out, you know, hold your breath and figure it out. I cannot explain to you how to ride a bicycle. You have to get on I don't care how many YouTube videos you watch or how many articles you read online, it will not help you learn how to ride a bicycle. At some point, you've got to get on the bike, and you will have a profound understanding, far more than anybody can ever describe. And this is the way of life. And such is peace of mind and happiness. And we have to get there through our own path. But if you're not happy, or if you have a customer that's frustrating you on a regular basis, it's really up to you how much you value your peace of mind and your happiness, how much you're willing to sell it for. It's just your choice. It's just a question of how long it takes you to realize that. And Monty contributed $5. Thank you, Monty. MB, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that. Would you recommend home servers? No. If you want a place to store your data at home, get a NAS like a Synology NAS or QNAP or Thecus. Buy yourself a NAS. Home servers, it's sort of a thing of the early 2000s. It didn't work for a reason. That's why the product is not available anymore. I don't recommend them. No, just a NAS is really all you need. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up today. looking for any final questions. One last question. One last one I can do here. Anyone? Bueller? Ronald Hambrick just contributed $2. Thank you, Ronald. James Duke says that I've noticed that Dell seem to enable RAID in their standard BIOS setup as opposed to AHCI. Is it better to enable AHCI for solid state drives for correct operation? I do. I install it. I change them. You've seen me with the veteran giveaways that I was changing the default RAID to AHCI. What difference it makes would have to be measured, but I just I'm not quite sure what Dell's reason is for that. Maybe they just don't know what they're doing, or maybe there's another reason, I don't know. But there's a reason why those two options exist, and if you're not using RAID mode, I don't understand why you would put it in RAID mode. It can make boot up during Windows issues where you need a rescue disk could be very difficult. So for compatibility and ease of future support, I enable AHCI. Whether or not it's a better performance, I don't know. Carrie, do you ever run SFC/scan now? Maybe 15 years ago, but not today, no. No, it's just outdated and unnecessary these days. And Madi contributed $20 again. Thank you so much, Madi. I thank you very much for that. Is there a shutoff period for Windows 7 to change to Windows 10? Well, Windows 7 support ends January 14th, coming up. It won't stop working, it just will stop getting any updates. As for upgrading to Windows 10 at no additional cost, as long as Microsoft activation servers continue to accept Windows 7 license keys, until Microsoft changes that, it'll continue to work. Will Microsoft change it? Don't know. There's a gentleman who writes for Microsoft Publications. He's an official journalist for Microsoft. His name is Ed Bott, B-O-T-T. And there's an article where he explains that there's nothing illegal about it. Microsoft is well aware of it. Microsoft chooses to leave those activation servers on. It's not taking advantage of anything. He's an official journalist for Microsoft with Microsoft Publications and encourages people to take advantage of it. So if you want to take advantage of it, do it. You can Google Ed Bott Windows, free Windows 10, I think, or something along those lines. I'll bring up the article. I'm sure that you can actually go to PCWorld.com, and there's an article currently as I'm making the video on December 17th, 2019. There's an article right there on the front page that says Windows 7 support is ending and what you can do or what your options are. And then as they mention, then as you read the article, there's a hyperlink that refers to this article by Ed Bott. You can click on that if you want to read the official Microsoft journalist article from Microsoft Publications on this topic if it puts you more at ease. But you can always buy Windows 10 at any time if you want to do that. So there's no cutoff date in that sense. Unless, of course, Microsoft decides tomorrow to turn that off, which they haven't done yet, but doesn't mean they won't. So my advice is grab it while you can, because they can take it away at any point. They don't owe you anything. They're not obligated. John Paul Bacon says he likes the Tech Deals YouTube channel. That's like a husband and wife team. It's really low key. It's kind of like mine, right? It's really, I haven't really watched much of their stuff, but they seem real down to earth and genuine. I should watch more of their stuff. Maybe you should interview them. With regards to running a system file checker or DSIM, to me, it's not something you should do lightly. In other words, if your system is running fine, leave it alone. Don't start running these system tools on it, because it could revert back to an older driver or an older DLL system mistakenly, and now you're going to have system problems. I recommend, if your system's running fine, leave it alone. And if you have a problem, instead of blindly running system repair tools, you should Google that problem or go to a free tech support site like techguy.org and post your problem there, and people can give you very specific instructions, which may include those system tools. But I wouldn't just jump right to those. The last time I ran SFC scan now was a long time ago. I don't know, years. Somehow I'm able to fix Windows without it. How am I able to do that? But it's your system and do what you want, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just advising, if you have a system that's working well, leave it alone. Sharon Idle says, Edbot used to work with Mary Jo Foley. Yes, that's true. James Duke says, thanks, Carrie. Get well soon, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Thanks, James, and to all of you as well. But I'll see you before then, of course. Still a lot of people thinking that Windows 10 is spying on them, which is the amount of data collection Microsoft does is nothing compared to what your ISP is collecting on you. And it's nothing compared to what your smartphone, like I hope you don't own a smartphone. Anybody who uses the internet and posts and joins in a public forum complaining about privacy is hypocritical. If you were truly concerned about your privacy, you would not be participating online, period. From anybody, not from Linux, not from Mac, not from any ISP, not from a smartphone. You are always being tracked anytime you electronically connect any device to the internet at all times. You will always be monitored by something, by the provider, by the host. That's the way it works, and if you don't like that, don't participate in it. It's just weird to stand up on a rooftop and yell about how dangerous it is to stand up on rooftops. It doesn't make any sense to me. Contribution of 14 pounds, 14, how do you say that? 14.99, 14 pounds and 99 pence. Contributed by James Duke. Thank you, James. Thanks for supporting the channel. Carrie, are KMS services legal for Windows activation? They are for people that are licensed for the KMS servers, which are typically large enterprise corporations. If you're not a large enterprise corporation with a contractual arrangement with Microsoft, then your usage of it would be illegal. But I'm not the police. It's not my job to enforce. laws are Microsoft's terms of service. But the KMS servers exist for large entities with thousands of employees where activation on each computer would be very costly. And so they make arrangements with Microsoft to provide their own key management services, servers, and so they don't have to go through that process with Microsoft. And they pay a lot of money for it, and it's only good for a certain period of time. So there are pirates out there that take advantage of that. So depending on the usage case, would determine whether or not it's theft or not. And theft, of course, is illegal. But you're the one who has to live with your actions. I don't. Marty Wells contributed $5. Thank you, Marty, for your continued support. SK Silva says, 14 pounds 99 is the way to say that. Thank you. Thank you. I have to remember how to say that. Mark Y says he only runs the system scanner tool if he has to remove malware. Why would you have to remove malware? I haven't had to remove malware off of a system in a couple of years. All my customers run a paid version of Malwarebytes, and no malware gets on. Malwarebytes is pretty cheap, and well, it can't protect you 100%. In my experience, I haven't had anything get through for any of my clients since running it for the last couple of years. The only people who have malware on their systems are those who are not running any good malware protection. It's always best to keep the malware from going on rather than cleaning it up after the fact. So malware is not the problem it used to be. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. It is doggy dinner time, and I should probably finish up Mike's system. He's probably going, Carrie, this was supposed to be done yesterday, tick-tock, and he wants to do another tech vets using this system before the end of this year. So I better get my butt in gear and get it done tonight. And then I'll film what it looks like when it's done, and it'll be tacked on to the final edit of this build. And then tomorrow, if I do everything right, then tomorrow I can go back to that RGB system back there with the Be Quiet case, and we can finish that one up as I resolve the issues with the cooler and get the operating system installed. We get a feel for how fast that is and take a look at what the RGB looks like, because it's supposed to be a really cool RGB fans. It's a different way of displaying RGB that Silverstone has created or developed. We'll see. We'll see what that is. It's supposed to be more blended, not sort of one or the other. I don't know. We'll see. Ed, one last question. Carrie, I purchased the retail versions of Windows 10 Pro. I want to reload the OS. Is it legal to create an updated version, creating a bootable flash drive, and activate it with my original key? You won't have to reactivate it with your original key. You can always update, and I recommend that you update your flash drive to the latest version of Windows 10, and go ahead and install that Windows 10. And when you install it, in the bottom left corner, when it asks for a product key, select I don't have a product key. Complete your install, then connect to the internet. Leave your internet disconnected. Once Windows 10 is installed, then connect it to the internet, then go to Windows Update, start grabbing any updates that have come out since that latest version of Windows 10. and you'll find that it recognizes your hardware from prior activation and reassigns the key. You don't need a Microsoft account or anything. It just works. So it's super easy. Now, if you're going to try and install that on a different motherboard, that's a different story. But on the same board, if you want to do a clean install, you never have to re-enter the product key once it's been activated. So thanks you guys so much for watching and participating in today's stream. And a shout out to everybody who's contributed to today's stream, which is Madi Yoel, who's contributed numerous times today. Thank you, as always, Madi. James Duke, Ronald Hambrick, Thomas Robinson and Brendan Looney, Steve Devine, Cody Butt, Dustin Fuller, Glenn Davies, Tom Jackson, Bill Bauer, Winston Anglu watches us all the way up in Vancouver, Canada. Skyflyer14, John Wilson. Thank you, John, for your continued support. Paul Hoynick, Pogan TX, C. Zombie, Bear Paw, Thomas O'Keefe, Jim Ennis, and our first contribution was from Peter Vigian. Thank you guys so much again for supporting the channel. And for everybody who's tuning in and watching and participating in the chat, thank you guys for asking your questions and making it interactive. Enjoy that a lot. So that's going to wrap it up for me today. Hopefully tomorrow's stream will go better with regards to the broadcasting issues we've got today with, I guess, is the ISP. I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.